All right, Alexander, let's do an update as to what's going on in Ukraine. Let's talk about the situation with grain. Let's talk about the situation with oil. All kinds of stuff going on with the grain, all kinds of stuff going on with the oil. But I think the grain thing we can kind of put to bed now with the agreement that has been signed between the UN, Turkey, and Ukraine, and then the UN, Turkey, and Russia. My take on it is that Russia and Turkey were humoring the collective West by doing all of this. That's just my take. And I actually read a New York Times report saying that now Ukraine is going to demine Odessa. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. And then we have the oil situation where there's all kinds of stuff going on. The 15% EU directive where everyone has to pool their oil together, the 15% of their oil, so it can be dished out to the community. We've got the Nord Stream is back and running at 40% capacity, and we're waiting for the turbines. But now there's stories that the turbines have kind of been lost in transit, or there's been mix-ups, and the collective West is now blaming Russia. All kinds of stuff there as well, because those turbines are needed to take it from 40 to 100%. And the whole force majeure thing was started by Reuters and then refuted by Reuters, and then the Wall Street Journal had articles refuting Reuters. Anyway, we got to the truth of it. The oil is back and running the gas is back and running at 40%, and we've got this turbine issue still left. All kinds of stuff going on. Where do you want to begin?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to begin with a story that nobody's reporting, but which I think is an extremely important one. You remember Biden going to Saudi Arabia, meeting with MBS? The very first thing MBS does once Biden has left, and we've got it all on the presidential website, he calls his very good friend Vladimir Putin. They have a very, very friendly chat. They're talking about the importance of adhering to the OPEC and OPEC plus formulas. They talk about developing the friendly relations between their two countries. It's actually a much more cordial and friendly conversation between the Russians and the Saudis, between MBS and Putin, than any of the ones that took place between Biden and MBS and Biden and the Saudis. So that perhaps, I think, buries once and for all any idea that the Saudis are thinking of coming to the US's rescue or to the West's rescue on the energy front. And it's fascinating to see how right across the media in the West, as I said, this conversation between Putin and MBS has gone completely unnoticed. I'm sure, by the way, that Putin was also careful to brief MBS about his discussions with the Iranian leadership. And of course, the Saudis are saying that they want to improve their relations with Iran. So you can see that particular part of the sort of geometry of all of this is taking a direction quite different from the one perhaps that the administration expected. But let's talk about the other two issues. First of all, let's talk about the grain. I think you hit the nail exactly on the head. Now, firstly, the Ukrainians have agreed to do that which they always said they would not do, which is to a great extent demine their own ports. Now, they did that. That had to happen in order to make it possible for these ships, these grain ships, to leave Ukrainian ports. As far as I can understand, it'll be the Turks who'll be responsible for checking them to make sure that there aren't any weapons shipped back to Ukraine with these ships. That agreement was always possible. It could have been made at any point in time. The Russians roped in Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, to give this whole thing the UN stamp of approval. The Western powers, as you correctly said, they needed to go along with this because the global South was becoming very angry about this whole affair and was starting to blame the West for those problems. The biggest story by far is not this grain agreement, but the fact that the Western powers are are relaxing a whole raft of sanctions that they imposed on Russia over food, agricultural exports, chemical fertilizer exports, all of those sort of things. And I do wonder whether at some point, perhaps under cover of this Yellen's oil cap idea, they might start to relax some of the sanctions on Russian oil and gas as well. Because on oil and gas, the West is in a very, very difficult position. Now, you're absolutely right. The force majeure story was clearly a fake. It was the whole thing has gone hideously, horribly wrong. But the long and short of it is this. We still have the Yamal pipeline largely shut. We have less gas flowing west through Ukrainian pipes than previously because the Ukrainians have closed one of the pipes. Nord Stream 1, even with this turbine, which may never be provided, is operating at reduced capacity. So at the moment, Russia is supplying enough gas to Europe to keep the Europeans tinkering along through the summer, but not enough for them to replenish their underground gas reserves, which in fact, if anything, are continuing to dwindle. So that's putting Europe in a very, very difficult position when it comes to gas over the course of the winter. Now, Ursula, your friend, went to Baku to try to persuade Azerbaijan to provide more gas. An agreement was produced in which the Azerbaijanians said, we're happy to try to increase our capacity, but they made no commitment at all to provide the EU with more gas. Qatar isn't providing any more. US LNG is apparently going to exports to Europe apparently going to start falling during the winter. Biden needs them in the US because the extent to which energy prices are spiking in the US is now causing the Democrats political problems. So I do wonder whether at some point we're going to start to see sanctions on Russian energy exports to Europe starting to be relaxed as well.
Yeah, Europe is losing, and they're losing big.
Europe is losing on every conceivable count. I mean, we said all along that Habeck was making all these promises. He was saying, that Germany would be able to phase out the use of Russian gas by the end of this year. Germany didn't need Russian oil. Germany didn't need Russian coal. None of that is true. The mathematics never made any kind of sense. The quantities were never there. And he was talking nonsense. He was inventing fables. He thought that, the Russian economy would just implode. It hasn't happened. So they've now had another sanctions package, which purports to restrict Russian gold exports to the EU, something which has already largely happened. But it's really a cover to lift sanctions on a whole raft of Russian agricultural products. And I wonder whether, as I said, Yellen's oil price cap idea is going to become the cover to lift some of the sanctions on Russian energy products as well.
Yeah. And Brabach also gave an interview or made a statement saying that we got to get the gas flowing now, otherwise we're going to have protests and riots. So now they love gas from Russia. Before they hated it, and now they love it. Now they need it. Absolutely.
What I think these people don't understand, and I really want to say this, is that, and Putin, by the way, recently made this entirely clear. Apparently he warned Scholz about this. Russian gas is never going to flow to Europe in the volumes that it used to, nor is Russian oil. That relationship has been destroyed because there is no trust any longer in it. So the Russians have managed to claw back on agricultural sanctions. They've managed to change European policies, by the way, on aviation sanctions as well. We don't quite know what the details there are, but it looks as if the Russians are now going to get some spare parts for their Western-operated jet planes. And I wonder what concessions the Europeans have had to make in return, by the way. But at the end of the day, Russian oil and Russian gas is going to be flowing east, not west. The Russians are going to continue to wind down from this point on. Putin said it. He said that as things stand, even with Nord Stream 1 going back on stream, Europe is only going to get around 20% of the gas it used to get from Russia. And the way he spoke, the volumes aren't going to be restored. And he also said that a lot of the gas that had been earmarked for use in Nord Stream 2 is now being re-earmarked for internal Russian consumption, and that Gazprom is going to be focusing increasingly on supplying gas in the Russian domestic market. And of course, it's just done a massive deal with Iran to develop the Iranian natural gas industry, which leads me to think Iranian gas to India, Russian gas to China and the Far East, Russian oil also to India and China. And that's going to be the energy relationship of the future.
And Europe's going to be paying a lot more for whatever gas they can possibly dig up anywhere. And that's going to be that. And Russia's going to put...
That's going to be that.
Russia's going to tie up the war in Ukraine, and that'll be that. And it'll be a massive, huge embarrassment for the European Union, for the collective West, for the Biden White House, and Ursula von der Crazy and Michelle and Borrell, they're all going to get promoted up because that's what always happens.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. That's entirely correct. And of course, we see Christine Lagarde is now raising interest rates. She's not had any choice. So definitely an EU recession is coming, a big one. But, you know, we could talk about the embarrassments that these people are going to suffer. We could talk about the promotions that these people are going to suffer. But the key story about all of this, the big takeaway about all of this is that from now on into the indefinite future, Europe is going to be paying much more for its energy than its rivals, its trading rivals in Asia and, by the way, in North America too. The Americans, obviously, they got huge resources in terms of gas, oil, whatever they can get by to a great extent. The Asians are going to get more gas and oil from the Russians. The Europeans have destroyed that key relationship with their primary energy supplier, and it is never coming back.
Yeah. Well, what can you say? Maybe this was part of the plan. Make the people suffer.
Well, I'm sure it was.
You can get all the, so you can get all the money poured into the renewables and into this fictitious green utopia.
Well, I think it was. I mean, I think it was to a great extent, and Except it's not going to work, as everybody who understands these things knows. But you know, that's the future that it's not that the European people have chosen, but it's the future that the European elite has chosen for Europe. And even if that elite changes now, I don't see the Russians ever changing their policies. I think it's been made once and for all. Putin says that he told Scholz in one of their last conversations about 8 weeks ago, look, please understand, the gas that would have passed through to Germany via Nord Stream 2, half of it has already been reallocated. You're never going to get the same volumes again, whatever happens from this point on. And apparently Scholz just didn't understand it. He didn't get it at all.
Yeah. Europe is done. Europe is out of the competitive game. Period.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a continent for people to just come and visit and take photos of the nice monuments and all the old buildings and architecture. That'll be that. I mean, you know, it's
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah. All right.
And There we go. There we go.
No, you're going to say?
No, I was going to say I think it's entirely right. It's going to become an industrial as well as a cultural museum. That's its future.
That's its future. But it'll be green, Alexander. It'll be green.
I bet it will be green.
Okay.
But it will be green.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll leave it there. The Duran.locals.com and go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. Telegram, Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. Please look for us there. Take care.
Yeah.